Welcome to another episode of Victoria's Lounge. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. We're coming to you from Crown Plaza. Now, it's something that is hard to prove, and the people who usually come out about their experiences are often victimized. I'm talking about sexual harassment, and though it is addressed in countless HR policies, it is still a quiet offense and something that unfortunately has become an acceptable practice in public spaces. So much so that some don't even know they have been sexually harassed. So we are unpacking that issue today, and I have a great panel, an awesome audience who are ready to dig in. Let's meet them now. Rita Mudeo Gikera is the co-founder of Her Voice and a gender activist who was one of the organizers for My Dress, My Choice campaign. Oyunga Pala is a Kenyan newspaper columnist behind Crazy Monday. He also writes a blog that examines the texture of everyday Kenyan life and the challenges of modernity and disillusion. Nicole Wasuna is a software developer with a passion for women's rights and African feminism. She spends a fair portion of her time documenting African women's lived experiences. Makani Muthiani is an accomplished HR professional with over 20 years' experience gained at different multinationals across the region. Wikali is the founder and managing director of Millennial Kenya, a consultancy firm that specializes in human resources and organization development services. Kelvin Obalu is a junior associate and social communications advisor at Rejdem Development and Consulting Firm, Nairobi. He's also a social entrepreneur and blogger, as well as a features writer. Remember, hashtag Victoria's Lounge is how you can chime into the conversation on social media. We want to hear from you. Engage, engage, engage. Now, this topic has been doing the rounds quite a bit, at least on high rotation on social media, because of some high-profile people coming out about incidences that they've gone through. Wikali, you have been in the HR department for years. Earlier you said donkey years, so quite a long time. So what constitutes sexual harassment in a workspace environment?
Sexual harassment at workplace really is about people making unwelcome advances at you, normally of sexual nature, and many times it's about somebody taking, it's a game of power really, that's what I would say. I have something that you want, and the only reason I can give it to you is if you give me something in return.
Right.
So that is the one that is very easily understood and seen as sexual harassment. But then there are also other ways where people are harassed by somebody can make silly comments around you, like you've got nice legs, like something that is not welcome.
Right.
And that is also harassment in one way. Somebody can ask you for a date, can we have a drink after work? Why should they be asking you about having a drink? It should be about work. So there are certain ways that many times people don't think actually they're part of or in the family of sexual harassment, but actually they are.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, some people may think, well, that means I can't compliment anyone then, because I'm at risk of harassing a coworker.
Yeah, that's not true, because there are comments that friends can make. You have your clique of people who you can joke around with. But there is somebody who can just out of the blues make a comment and you feel very uncomfortable. I think the first thing and the best thing to do is to tell them, please stop. That makes me feel uncomfortable because it's really unwelcome. Yeah. But there's someone else who can compliment you and you're happy about it because you know the relationship that you have with them.
Right.
So it's really about that person who makes you feel uncomfortable and having the guts at the first instance to tell them, please stop.
Yeah.
This is making me uncomfortable.
Right.
I think many times we don't ask them to stop. We just shy away and keep quiet, and then it gives them time, and they feel the perpetrator feels energized. And next time they are there trying again to harass you. But the moment you're very strong and you say, I don't like what you're doing to me, you just, I think they would stop and they get the message.
You said something very important, is having the guts. To actually say something. And you're right, a lot of people do not, for fear of, because a lot of times it's someone who's your superior. You don't want to seem like you're being insubordinate, or you don't want to risk losing your job. And Kelvin, you wrote an article recently addressing this whole issue, this scenario, because of people who approached you in confidence about some of the things that they faced at the workplace.
Well, first and foremost, when that particular high-profile person came out, and disclosed to the whole country that she was being harassed sexually, I said like, wow, this is a game changer. The field has been leveled. Everybody's game now. Anybody can come for you and anybody can expose you. And so 3 friends of mine, 2 are colleagues and 1 is just a gentleman. They came to me in confidence and said, we are being harassed, we're being molested. In fact, they said we're being molested. Wow. It has now moved from sexual harassment to molestation at my workplace. And one lady in particular, who's a Muslim, came to me in confidence and she told me, because you've been a good friend, I'll tell you this. And I took to my laptop and started typing away. I typed. I finished reading what I had written, and I posted it. And I told everybody on Twitter, hey, I've posted it. This is what I think about sexual harassment at work.
Right.
Yep.
And I want to throw it out to my mini audience. I have a legal mind there, Stephanie, just to kind of give us a sense of what it is. When is the line crossed? Makani had given us some pointers of in the workplace what can happen and what can lead to sexual harassment. But from a legal standpoint, if someone was to take action to get legal redress, what would they use against the perpetrator, for instance?
Each workplace has its own guidelines, including of how co-workers should coexist in the office. So I feel that once you feel that a particular issue has happened, you should be able to go to HR and report it, because these people already have these guidelines. But you see, the problem comes about with whatever action HR takes. And that's where things like intimidation occur. So the problem is not necessarily with what to do. People know what to do, but it's on the other side. I think issues of intimidation, friendship, all of those things take place. So you find that you report, your case goes nowhere. But that should not stop there. You go to the next authority. If you are really, really buzzed about it, you go to the higher authority. Because I feel like once you keep quiet, it happens to the next person, it happens to the next person. It changes how you work. You have no peace of mind. And it needs strong people to be able to take action, because I think we've already realized that for you to get action taken and justice taken for you, you have to speak out for yourself. Right. There are people out there that are not ready for you to say this and this happened. And that is where the challenge comes in. You have to be ready to push them and tell them, no, it happened. Right. This and this was what was said. And you have said that when this and this happens, this is wrong. So what are you going to do to help me?
Sexual harassment is, his word against hers, or her word against his, depending on who the individuals involved are. And so how can someone bring proof? We saw a high-profile individual go on social media, very influential, they have networks everywhere, and still they were castigated for coming out against whoever the perpetrator was. So how, even if you do not get justice, is there another place where you can get support, or some sort of redemption for what you've gone through, or vindication for what you've gone through?
I think that you should be able to approach tribunals, first of all, depending in the context of where you work at. I'm sure there are different tribunals to address this kind of disputes. And I feel like castigation will always occur, because everyone in society is not of the same view. But in issues where you say that there is not necessarily straight evidence that you can claim, I think that you should try and see, because if this person is doing it to you, it could be happening to other people. Right. If you're able to get other people to actually speak out against it, that could be an added advantage. But even if you do not have that, if this person said that to you, you stick by what this person said. Because if you start changing your story, first of all, of course it will look very, very weird. But I think that what happens is that when they see you a resilient person, they will actually tell that this person must be serious, because why will they struggle all the way? Right. So I feel like if you're really, really passionate about what has happened to you and you want to get action, just speak and refuse to keep quiet.
Okay, Nicole, this, after we saw that influential individual come out about their experience, it shifted a lot. I mean, what do you feel happened to a lot of women who, they've gone through it? And I remember a lot of the comments once that individual came out was, why did you wait so long? Why did you wait a whole number of years before you actually came out about it? Which, I mean, does it discredit you because you came out 10, 20 years after it happened? And what did it do for a lot of women once that individual came out?
First of all, I think Well, I have a very big problem with this idea that somebody influential, it has to happen to somebody influential before we admit that it's happening to other women. And there was another response from somebody who said, you know, why would he go for an old woman like her when he has 18 to 26-year-olds at his disposal? First of all, just look at the kind of language that they were using. And see, at that point, it doesn't matter whether she's high profile or not. The conversation still spiraled back to the usual, what you're saying, that why did you wait so long before you reported it? He has younger women at his disposal, as though if it happened to a younger woman, we wouldn't be outraged, it would be even more acceptable. Like, oh, she's 26, it's fine, it's supposed to happen to them. Right. See, nobody actually comes out and says, this is wrong, we need to do something about it. Right. And even when we come out and say that, we only protect people who have the resources to, let's say, seek justice without public outcry. When it happens to, you know, your regular Joe at the office, nobody cares. Right. And you see, nobody draws that parallel. Nobody says, okay, it happened to this high-profile woman. It's most likely worse for people who don't have the kind of visibility, the kind of power, really, that she has. Right. See, nobody comes and says, okay, let's deal with these others as well. We just talk about it on Twitter, we derail the conversation, and then we wake up tomorrow and life moves on. The next person will come out tomorrow and it'll be the same thing. Right. Why did you wait so long? You're too old, you're too young, you're lying, you're trying to ruin his reputation, which was mentioned, that you're just trying to ruin his reputation. See, you're trying to bring him down, you're trying to bring down a powerful man. Nobody talks about how it impacts the victims' lives. In fact, we make the perpetrator the victim. See, and we make the victim the perpetrator. So it becomes like being a victim of sexual harassment is wrong. Right. You know, why did you put yourself in such a situation? That kind of thing. And it's, I don't know, it really gets on my nerves.
Calvin, you look like you're itching to respond. Go ahead before I go to Oyunga.
I mean, for me, I'm just looking at the kind of intimidation that goes behind the curtain when somebody is being sexually harassed at work. Now, two things come to my mind. One is the person, first of all, is unhappy and unproductive. But two, it extends to home. And these are the kind of things that ruin relationships. Your wife comes home, your husband comes home, and he's unhappy constantly. And you ask him or her, what's the matter? And, you know, he's always quiet. But deep down in his heart, he's knowing that I'm disturbed. Then thirdly, this person has two things also to do. If mediation fails or the HR approach fails, they will quit, okay, or they will just stay and continue the indignation and suffering. And that is bad.
I mean, Oyunga, a lot of times you see in the cases, the victim is told, just leave. And the one who's the harasser, the aggressor, usually tends to stay. Very few times do you see them told to step down or to leave their job. I mean, the unprecedented case was just recently with Roger Ailes from Fox News, who was told to step down after Gretchen Carlson called him out and sued him for sexual harassment. But those are very rare scenarios. But why do you feel, just generally, that's the culture? The victim is told to leave.
I think we've got a troubling power dynamic, and I guess it has to be said that in most of our societies, there's a huge male dominance, and it's been going on for so long, and it's basically been perpetuated to the extent that it becomes a culture. So, as a man, we operate from a certain level of privilege that a lot of us are very unconscious about. So it becomes a lot of the issues that have been raised here just sort of happen, and people don't even realize that it constitutes harassment, because in their view, that's what they have always seen. Right. So the first problem is the culture and the socialization of society. We come from a very troubling power dynamic where men have a privilege that they sit on, they're not even aware of it. And you start to realize it in all sorts of places. I mean, one of the most recent examples I raised with a couple of friends of mine was that all my friends who have daughters are very aware of public space safety. So every time they go to a place, they ask, is this safe enough for my daughter? And those of us who have no daughters, those of us who have sons, forget sometimes our privilege. For a man, stepping into a matatu is a no-brainer. You know, you don't think about what you're putting on, you don't think about how you'll sit. It's a no-brainer. For a man taking a jog at 7 o'clock in the night, it's a no-brainer. Rape never crosses your mind. So there's a lot of things that we're just not aware of. And it starts from going back deeper into the roots of our socialization, understanding what the roots of this prejudice and privilege comes from. Because unless we really attack it from the very core, it's very difficult to, we can deter behavior with legislation. We can tell people that if you do this, you will be, you'll be jailed.
Right.
But ultimately, in terms of the bigger society, it has to be community among community policing themselves. The legal force can only do so little, because a lot of the cases, as we know, go unreported. So I think it starts with conversations like this. First of all, deeply examining where we are as a society, and then going back the roots of these habits that are so deeply ingrained, and starting to break them down progressively, and at all levels, from the religious space, as we know, within the church. It's got its own troublesome issues, from the corporate power dynamic down to family level. So all these issues have to be addressed very comprehensively. But I think the thing to remember is that it's going to take time, and it takes more and more women stepping up, as you said very well, owning their stories and saying enough.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned something very important, the whole thing of privilege. Those ones who are privileged don't realize that they're benefiting from it. Someone equated it to like fish not knowing that they swim in water. You know, that's just a reality to them. It's happened all along. And we'll see after the break that sexual harassment doesn't just happen in the workplace. It happens on the street as well. We'll talk to Rita when we come back. Welcome back. The conversation continues. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. Now, Rita, before we went to break, we were talking about the whole issue of sexual harassment in other spaces. And this is probably where it's more rampant, which is on the street.
Yes.
You're one of the co-founders of My Dress, My Choice, and we know where that stems from.
Yes.
But just take us through just some of the scenarios that people, men and women, would go through on the street.
Sexual harassment on the streets of Kenya is very rampant. And as we did the campaign, the stripping stopped. But there's another ways of sexual harassment cropping up. And it's very tricky to pinpoint. Even some women actually don't realize they're being harassed. Is when somebody posts a story on social media and people are laughing and comment, and we are like, do you know you are being harassed? For example, when you want to go into a matatu and a tout approaches you, they decide to hold your hand, and maybe you're behind, and help you enter the bus. But you didn't ask for this help, and most of the time you're being groped.
Right.
Yes, that's sexual harassment. When you're seated next to a person and somebody decides to pleasure themselves because you're seated next to them, that's sexual harassment. And sometimes it goes down to sexual violence. So when I get so annoyed when people take clips of such people. You're seated next to somebody, they're pleasuring themselves. You're taking a clip, posting on social media. I ran there, I want to know, where were you? Can I have this picture? Can we report this person? And people are laughing. They're making jokes. You're being harassed. That case should be reported. Sometimes also when women are walking down the streets, people come and even spank you. What do people do? They laugh. So on the streets and public spaces, it's so rampant. It's hard even to report. People don't help you. People look at you and they laugh. Instead of somebody walking there and telling that person, excuse me, stop it. Don't touch her. The other day, somebody also was talking about how she was being violated at a Githurai bus stop. And the conductor was holding her hand, come madam. But in the process, they stole her phone. And then they started groping her. When she started shouting, the conductor started shouting and saying she's talking badly and such stuff. So I'm asking this lady, have you reported this case to the police? No. Then on the comments, somebody else comes up and saying that uoni boy wa mtaa. Boy wa mtaa, he's a middle-aged man, and number one, you're calling him boy.
Right.
Yes. And that's harassment. So you were harassing this lady, and because she didn't want to respond to your sexual advances or touches, you decide to label her, she's rude and drama queen. Right. Most of the time you're called a drama queen. Being harassed, when you're harassed and I shout, I'm not being a drama queen, I'm being violated. So that needs to end. And there are men who Like we advocate for positive masculinity, as he's saying, a he for she. When this lady is being abused or stripped, walk to her. You are a man. Say no. Hold that lady's hand and walk away. Even if you're alone, stand for what you know is the truth. Men used to protect women. What happened? So we are looking for a he for she, and we want our public spaces to be safe. They are not safe. The matatus are not safe. The circles, we want women to identify the buses where women feel safe. We always see on social media people saying, "I basi fulani ya kwenda mtaa fulani, the conductor is wow." We also need to appreciate such people. And we also need women to boycott those buses and circles where you don't feel safe. Only stand at the stage and enter the bus where you feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kelvin, you wanted to respond to that briefly for throw it to the audience.
To add something to what she's saying. You know, it was a while back, and my girlfriend had come to the office to pick me up, and so we were supposed to go home. And as we were walking up from uptown to downtown, we were going to pick a matatu, and at the stage for Kasarani, I think as you go towards Mwiki, the touts just came for me, you know. And you know, I protected the lady. You know, I was like, okay, you guys will first get through me before you get to her.
Wow.
And they said she was wearing scantily, but you know, she was just wearing a nice dress. And they said it's too tight, it's
so
revealing.
Now they're the moral police.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's revealing. And they said we will strip her.
Wow.
And I said that won't happen. It was at night. And so I defended her. And I felt so bad. And you know, these kind of things have been overwhelming me, and that's the kind of reason why I spoke out on my blog post. And that's why I wrote such things. Yeah,
we need more men who are not just writing but actually responding like Kelvin did, and I see there's quite a few responses in the audience. We'll start with the gentleman in the orange shirt.
Okay. I'm John Mwangi Wagatwa, a motivational speaker who is upcoming, and I'm also an actor. On that point about I'll go to the other side of the women, about the public on the streets and everywhere. Women, for example, I'm not attacking what my dress, my choice was for standing for, but there's this point whereby you are a lady, you are dressed sexily, or they call it sexy. I'm dressed sexy. And you're going to church, and you're going to an office. That office you're going to, they are men. They are other women. You want to tell me, and you know the way a man, biologically, the way a man is molded, his body reacts from what he sees. Yeah? I'm not talking about if the lady is dressed properly, fine. But what about those very, very short skirt? And you're going to an office or to a church, and then, according to the way man is molded, he sees, and then his body reacts, according to the way men are. I'm not being controversial, but that is the other thing. You are actually abusing, or you are doing, it is sexual harassment to men. Other men are not interested by you. They are married, maybe. You're working together in office, but the way you are dressed, it is speaking something else to them. Actually, some of the ladies, they go seeking sexual favors because once the way they have worn, even when they come to the office, and the way they are walking, it tells you, it drags your attention. Even if you are not there, or your attention was not on the way she is, or you are not even about her, but from the way she's dressed, she's telling you something. So from that, you react. And maybe that is also, should be termed as sexual harassment to men. Yeah.
Okay, there's quite a few, yes, Makani, and then we'll go to you in the yellow. Go ahead.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I also believe that you know, like when you go at workplace, there's of course what is called a dress code, and that's why employers need to just make sure that people dress in an appropriate way, but people also have a choice to dress. I can tell you that some of the women who have come to me who have been maybe harassed at places of work, they were dressed very appropriately. So it wasn't about what they were wearing at that time. It's just about men not being able to respect women, if you ask me. And so men, you know, the way you're telling us you're wired, I don't think that's an excuse. You know, how can you excuse something? You're wired also to respect women. Why can't you be wired to respect women instead of harassing them? So men have to learn, actually, to really see women, irrespective of how they are dressed, and see a daughter, see a sister, see a wife, see a lover, whatever you want to see, but respect them. Otherwise, you can't stand there and, you know, that's the excuse men give. Even at workplace, you hear them saying, you know, the way they dress, it doesn't matter. Because even when there's a dress code at place of work, there's still people who dress and they look very attractive. What are you going to do about them? Because naturally, they're just attractive. So you have to control yourselves.
To add on what she's saying, to me, when you say, what do you mean by inappropriately dressed? Some of us, if you went to the coastal region today, we would be inappropriately dressed. We are not covered up. So you can't judge. You go to Turkana. What would happen to such men you're saying they are wired if they went to Turkana? Women there walk bare-chested. What would happen? It's just that, to me, when you say about dressing, sometimes I don't deal with it now. It's an excuse. So it's just an excuse.
It's a thing of exercise self-control on the part of the men. All right, let's take a short break. On that note, you're watching Victoria's Lounge. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Now, Kelvin, you actually wanted to respond to what John had said.
I think for me, it's just one thing. I am a man just like you, and I exercise restraint and self-control. I mean, I'm not a beast. If I see a woman and she's revealing or she looks so attractive, I let it pass. You know, she's not mine. And it's not for me to take. And it's not for me to tell her that I'll strip you or I'll whip you or I'll do anything like that. I have a sister, I have a mother. I intend to be a father one day. I intend to be a husband. And to me, I'd never want a woman to come into the society or the kind of country that we have currently right now, where men are just beasts and savages. Okay. It's not what I want.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Edith Wangari. I'm a student, so I'm doing 2 degrees in finance and in economics, and I also work part-time in direct selling. For me, I think from what my friend here said, I extremely disagree. And this is not a debate because I'm slightly a feminist, but I'm also a realist. So I'm going to be very honest. I think we're looking at the problem on the wrong perspective. The problem is not the woman. The problem is not how the woman is dressed. The problem is not how the woman looks or how attractive she is. If anything, we were created to be beautiful according to the word of God. The problem is the man who has not yet exercised self-control, who in his words he said a beast, you know. So and I think the problem starts in our society where we've made women a sexual object. They look at the woman and they see a sexual object. They don't see, I like what he said in the Bible, that the woman was created to be a helper. But now we are a subordinate, you know. We are an object. We have but one objective in the man's eye to satisfy his needs. And I don't know when society became so shallow, because last I checked, someone had said how in the traditional perspective, the man is to protect the woman. But now I think we're trying to become Western, but we're doing it in a wrong way. Because, and I look at in terms of how sexual harassment is addressed in legal perspective, there are countries like Saudi Arabia, like Morocco, like Iran that don't have anything to protect people from sexual harassment. But in Kenya we have a law, and there's even punishment, 100,000 fine in Kenya shillings and 3 years in prison or both. But what is happening, because we have a law that looks pretty on paper, that sounds nice when we talk about it, but it's never applied. It's a dead horse in my opinion. And this needs to change. And for me, I love when Rita supports things like My Dress, My Choice, because I think it's beautiful. It's about time that women spoke up, that we stop being silent, because tumekaliwa chapati, and it is not correct in my opinion.
Stephanie, you want to respond and we'll come to you?
I think first, John, I will hope that those are not your views, that you are just collecting views somewhere. Because society needs to change. I wish we could look for photos of our mothers, our grandmothers. When they first came to Nairobi, they're taking photos at KICC and look at the dresses they had worn. I can tell you for sure, that is not something I can wear today and go to Kencom and go to Odeon. The moment I just step into the streets, catcalling. The moment I just step into the streets, someone wants to touch me. And I don't think that you could say that this is an issue of women tempting men, because our mothers did not go through such things. That was not happening. And first of all, what I'd like to say is that our laws so far, I think they are okay. It's just that people are not acting upon them. Because nobody will come to the streets and ask, who was stripped? Okay, do you want to open a case? No. No, that's not how the law works. So I think it starts from us saying, no, you know what, let us go to the streets and say, no more stripping. And I think something Rita has not mentioned is that what happened after my Dress My Choice, the security bill was still in Parliament. And it was amended to include stripping as an offense. So out of it all, they achieved something because now people know that if you strip me, before you could not be taken to court because there was no chargeable offense for that as such. It would be a minor offense. But now it carries weight. Because what is happening now is that even though stripping cases have reduced, people are even using drugs. The drugs that people used to steal from you, now at the end of it all, you end up being touched inappropriately before your things are stolen. Now they say, okay, let us just enjoy the few minutes we have with this person before we steal from them. And you're groped everywhere. But you see, if nobody says enough is enough, if nobody says let me go to the police, nothing can happen. Nothing can happen. And I'd like to accredit someone like Kelvin, because I think that if we had 10 more men like you out there, we would have gone very far right now. We'd not be talking about these issues. Like our country would have been addressing other issues. These issues of saying women now, you're tempting me, you did that purposefully, I'm just appreciating, why don't you just smile and accept that you look good? But it's not your part to tell me that I look good. Why don't you just come to me and say, hi, madam, you know what? You look good.
Yeah.
And I will say thank you and I will smile at you. But if you come telling me, sister, do you expect me to smile and say thank you?
Especially if it was, yes.
Hi, my name is Anita Youre. I'm a psychologist. I think for me, I want to say two things about sexual harassment. Makani had spoken about sexual harassment being unwelcome. It's also unwanted and harmful. It's harmful to the person it happens to. And there are two types. There's covert and overt. Overt being, it's happening. So someone comes and posts you nude pictures of himself or asks for sex, or so it's happening, it's wrong, and you're very uncomfortable. Covert is much harder to say but has the same results in terms of harm. So the person might, in terms of saying you look good, but you're feeling uncomfortable. They're undressing you with their eyes. They're standing too close. They're entering your body space. And many times that's harder to then go to HR and say, I think something, because you can't define it yourself. You're just uncomfortable. You go into work uncomfortable. You come back home uncomfortable because you're questioning, is it happening? Is it not? Mm-hmm. Who do I tell? Do I tell my friend? Do I tell my mom? Where do you go? If it's you have the pictures, if someone is sending them to you. If someone is sending you letters, you have the letters. But the harm it causes can be lifelong. You ask the question about why do you take so long to say? What do you say? It's so hard to come out and say, someone is doing this and this to me. And then what happens? You get the backlash, so you give up.
Right. And I think the whole thing of the aggressor, the perpetrator, can also be someone that you still relate with years on. I remember in Anita Hill's case, and people were asking, you still related with this man even after you left the EEOC. Years after you left the organization, why? If he caused you harm, why did you still keep contact with him? Because, this is still your boss. And she said, I didn't want to burn those professional bridges after all, because this is someone you might need down the line, even though they caused me harm. So it's they're very blurred lines when it comes to that issue of sexual harassment and still relating with the harasser and how to keep that cordial, if you will, but still, there's that uncomfortable energy between the two of you because they are causing harm or abuse to you. Thanks for watching Victoria's Lounge. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Thank you to my panelists, to the audience. That does it for this part of the conversation on sexual harassment. It certainly continues next week. Make sure you tune in at the same time, same place. Keep the conversation going on social media, though. #Victoria's Lounge. Thank you to Crown Plaza for hosting us. Let's do this again next week. Have a wonderful night.
Shida ukisimama Like most of the cameras and then the lighting.
For the most part, we do two. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Do you need a standing or? Wow.
Hiyo itakupa easy move.